Today, we are joined by Pirates beat reporter for MLB.com, Alex Stumpf. You are listening to the Bucko Banner podcast brought to you by the Just Baseball Media Network. Cue the music.
Rockin' 101, she compliment my taste. Whiskey in my lemonade, cause I like the way it tastes. Best seats at the Pirates game, they let me run the base. Yeah, my time is like my money, cause I can't afford to waste. Wifey is a lawyer, take my date to my dates. Order steak by the plates, and in case after case, run my race at my pace, clear the grass of the snake.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 82. And Alex is back. Welcome back, man. It's been too long.
It's been about at least a couple dozen of those episodes.
Yeah. I was trying to quickly scroll back on our feed to see when the last time was, and it was, I think, like mid-season when like things
summer.
We had hope. Like
that sounds about right.
It was warm outside. Yeah. What was that?
They were buying at the deadline.
Oh yeah.
It was Brian De La Cruz and Jalen Peaks. Yet we just were told buying.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we had hope. We were drinking the hopium, but we've had Noah on a lot. We needed to mix it up. Good to have you back. It's been quite the off season, right? To say the least. Scott's mentioned on this show numerous times. At this point last year, they at least made more additions to the major league roster, regardless of who those names were. What's your sense right now? How are you feeling a month away from pitchers and catchers reporting?
I mean, they're not done. Let's start off with that. They are going to be making moves. The bullpen is a big priority. Corner outfield is a big priority. I know I'm kind of a broken record, saying that over and over again, but they're going to add to that group in some way. I'm a little surprised that it's been this slow, I guess. Like touch is always just going to happen after the winter meetings, whenever they have a general feel of what the roster is going to be, what's available out there. Okay, now let's bring in touch. Don't have to worry about the roster spot after the winter meetings and the Rule 5 draft and all that stuff. Okay, that makes sense. Not doing anything since is a little surprising. I don't know if they wanted to get the arbitration, ducks in a row and, have kind of like a firm, this is what our budget is, this is how much we currently have now, so we have X amount still to spend. I don't know how much of it is they're just waiting for the market to continue to drag on, and the further it goes, players get a little more, for lack of a better word, desperate. Like they're a little more motivated to get a deal that's a good negotiating tool for the Pirates. So it's not the offseason that I think a lot of people expected or were hoping for so far, but that doesn't mean there's still a month plus to go. We saw last year that this team is willing to make moves, Super Bowl Sunday right before, pitchers and catchers get there, make moves actually in spring training. So it's really, in my mind, a month and a half, maybe even pushing 2-month window of what they could actually do to still add to this team.
Yeah, I've said it before. This is probably one of the more important off seasons, especially for the Sherrington regime. And also, it feels like last year that they made more major league moves, although not like big moves, but they had like Rowdy, Martin Perez, Marco Gonzalez, I think by this point, and Kutch. So the only way I can justify it is they knew they didn't necessarily go into last year thinking that they were going to compete. And so they were filling roster spots with guys on 1-year deals and maybe guys that they could flip at the deadline or could be good clubhouse presences. And then this year, they're kind of playing the waiting game, which is a dangerous game to play, especially for an organization like the Pirates, given that you have a guy like Paul Skeens for maybe 4 more years. I don't know, 5. Do you think there's value in that? Like, is there value in waiting for a guy's price to drop? Because there's not like big name free agents left. Like there's a Randal Grichuk, an Alex Verdugo, some bullpen guys like an AJ Minter sounds, seems like a good fit being a left-handed bullpen arm. But what are your thoughts on playing that game potentially for the Sherrington regime?
I mean, whenever you have X amount of budget to work with, you got to try to find ways to try to bring some prices down. Last offseason, I think they kind of had that mindset, and whenever a lot of like starting pitchers, came off the market, they're like, okay, we'll put more eggs into the Aroldis Chapman basket. I don't know if something like that will happen again this year. I don't know if there really is a free agent that could kind of falls in that same, tier of like an Aroldis Chapman type player. Another factor that I think you have to look at is the offseason that they were the busiest, in my opinion, was 2022 going into 2023. That's whenever they brought in Carlos Santana and Rich Hill and G-Man Choi and Austin Hedges. And it was a long list, Vinny Velo, a long list of guys, coming in. And that roster was also far less flush, full as it is now. I'm not saying that this roster is, complete by any means, but there are a ton of holes this year. This year you can say, well, it's first base, corner, outfield, and bullpen. Because middle infield is pretty much set. Third base, you got Key. If he can't go, you got Triolo, who's a Gold Glover. You got a couple outfielders in the mix. You feel pretty good about the catching situation, because you got guys who have upside and, some optionable talent in Endy and Henry if Joey Bart just absolutely takes this job and runs with it. So that I think is also a factor in it. Not saying that this team is at all close to being complete. I'm just trying to come up with different ways of why they were more active in previous off seasons compared to this one. This roster is a little closer. If they had to, they could, break camp right now with the guys they have on the 40-man roster. I don't think you could have said that, going into 2023.
Mention Henry Davis. I want to talk a little bit about that because that's a name that people are forgetting about a little bit, rightfully so, just because of the performance to date. I read your recent mailbag, and you mentioned he made such improvement behind the plate. We're kind of hoping he takes that same step with the bat. Obviously, that has to happen for him to earn a role on any major league team. But you also said there was no possibility of him moving to right field. If his bat got going, but you still have the rise of Joey Bart, if he continues on the same track, if Endy gets right, do you think that could even be a plausible option where they're like, hey, if he is hitting and he's providing power, then we have that option? Or is it just they're sticking with him at the catcher position?
I mean, they want to stick with him at the catcher position. Let's start off there. But there is a scenario where all three guys are just absolutely clicking. And in that case, I'm sure they would find some way to get, 2 or 3 of those guys in the lineup somehow, whether that's Endy at first base, Joey Bart maybe at first base, Henry going out right. But there really are no plans for him to go out to right field right now. He's not working as an outfielder, this offseason. The focus is improve the hitting, continue to improve defensively as a catcher. And that's probably what it should be right now. I mean, this kid was drafted to be a major league catcher, and I was frankly impressed, with the growth that he showed last offseason and the way that it was able to translate into games and the other parts of his game, as a defensive catcher that he does get a lot of praise for, like, game calling, being able to handle a pitching staff, diving into data and video to try to learn more about not only his pitchers, but maybe what other batters are doing to try to just bring in good information into the catcher's room, even if he's not going to be behind the plate that day. There's a lot of good stuff that he does as a catcher that, I see why they want to keep him as a catcher. And I'm not writing off him as a hitter either. I mean, this is the type of guy that I'm not going to write off Henry Davis, I think, ever. Like, he is a hard worker. He is as motivated as any ball player as I have, come across in my years doing this job. If he can't, he can't, but it's not going to be because he didn't try. So I want to see what an offseason of trying yields.
Yeah. Adam and I were looking at the 21 draft that he came out of?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were looking at that yesterday, actually, and there's some names underneath him that were like Jackson Jobe, Jordan Lawler, Sal Frelick, like guys that actually have debuted, or some guys that are like have a lot more upside or have proven themselves at the higher levels. But taking Henry Davis allowed us to pick Bubba Chandler, allowed us to pick an Anthony Solomano, like those guys. So, you know, I'm rooting for him. I think like you see the work ethic. Hopefully an off season away. The game is so mental. We've all experienced it in our playing days, but he's someone that you definitely like bet on given his, you know, work ethic and whatnot. I want to turn to Ahmed Rosario. He signed a 1-year, $2 million deal today. Random, I know, but he was a guy that I had listed as a potential signing early in the offseason when he had like bounced names back and forth with Noah. It seems like a guy that Cherington likes, a guy that can play multiple positions. But are we really sold on IKF playing shortstop every day? Because we've seen this happen already. We've seen this in the Bronx. They did that for a year. I don't know how much better or how much different Ahmed Rosario is. Defensively, he's probably a little bit better, but the bat, they're pretty similar profile. What are your thoughts? Are you thinking they're sticking with IKF for the whole full season?
I think they're looking internal, and IKF is the veteran. He's the guy that they traded for at the deadline. I would say he has the inside track for that job. Can't write off Peggy, though. Like, Yover Figueroa has a ton of potential. I know last year was a disappointment offensively, but he really grew defensively. And if he can continue to develop as a hitter, he's got upside to be a major league starting shortstop. So I don't think there's going to be a chance for him if he could do something. Someone like Billy Cook, you know, takes off. Well, they could probably find a way to move like Gonzalez to shortstop and keep Billy Cook at second. There are different options, different routes that they could take for shortstop. I think it's really IKF, and it's not the Rosario move that kind of sealed it in my mind. It was the Gavin Lux trade that the Reds made of a guy who's a lot more of a name than he is, you know, production wise, but he is good ball player. He is cheap. He was available for a compensation pick and a guy who I don't think even was on the Reds top 30 prospect list. Like, you can make that type of trade. And I think his ARB figure is like $3 million or so. So like, that could have been something. I feel like that could have been like, okay, could he play shortstop? Could he play second? Obviously didn't happen, but I look at it now. IKF would be my bet as the shortstop. But you got Figueroa, you've got Triolo, you've got, you know, Gonzalez. You've got
Nicky G might play a little bit of shortstop too, huh?
I would expect him to get at least a couple reps there. I don't think you can make him an everyday shortstop, though. I think he's better off on the other side of second.
Spencer Horwitz was the big move. Do you think he's going to be a platoon guy, or are they hoping that he's going to pick it up against lefties?
I mean, the hope would be that he could hit both, but Andy Rodriguez is kind of an interesting second factor in this because he can play first base too.
Right.
I could see a scenario where, you know, if Joey Bart is the everyday catcher, or, you know, catcher 1A or whatever it ends up being, you could still have Andy as the backup, and then at first base also DH. There are ways to get him his 400 something plate appearances too. So I wonder if that's, you know, on the table. You can't really do a whole lot until you actually lay eyes on Andy in camp, because he's just such a wild card right now coming back from the elbow surgery. Billy Cook can play some first base also. We saw him make a couple solid plays out there. A Horwitz, Billy Cook platoon, if it came to that, I think would work out decently well. They liked this kid for a while, Horwitz. They gave up a lot to get him.
Yeah.
So I don't see them making that type of trade just to have, you know, half your first
platoon guy
covered. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say I love the positional versatility they have on the roster. I think that is valuable for an organization like this. But you kind of led me to my next question, because I wanted to ask you about the Horwitz trade. That to me seemed like an overpay, especially for and that does not mean I'm not a fan of Spencer Horwitz or think he's a bad player. I mean, a lot of the peripherals look good. Like he seems like he could be a solid bat compared to the offense they had last year. But compared to like what Nathaniel Lowe was traded for, or some of these other Josh Naylor, some of these other guys, it just seems like they overpaid for the sake of, and I'm going to be careful with this term, I've said this with Noah, financial flexibility. Did you get that sense at all?
You'd be, and this isn't, a Pirates cheap type deal, but anytime you acquire a pre-arb player who's coming off of, what was it, like a 2-war season?
Yeah.
And has 6 years of control. I mean, the financials is a selling point for that player. You know damn well Cleveland used that as, well, he's worth this much because you're going to get this much value out of him. He's going to be, pennies on the dollar production-wise the first couple of years. That's going to be dangled in a trade. I'm kind of with you, though. This is not an attack on Spencer Horwitz or anything. He could end up being the first baseman of the future. I eat my words. Like, even if he's not, and he's just a reasonably good baseball player. Luis Ortiz had the same thing, though. He was, a cheap player with years of control, 5 years of control, and a really good year last year where he showed that he could be a starter. But if that doesn't work, he could also pitch out of the bullpen. So I might have been as high on Luis Ortiz as anyone, in Pittsburgh. I really thought highly of him as a pitcher, how much he's thrown as a person. I think that trade was an overpay, especially whenever you throw in the two prospects. Like, I think
I'm high on Michael Kennedy. I'm really high. Well, I don't want to prospect. Like, the guy's further away than most, but he's a Northeast prep arm that was committed to LSU. He did really well in Bradenton and made it to Greensboro his first year. I mean, a lefty arm who's got some projection left. I mean, it's a good prospect.
He's an analytics darling.
Yeah.
Like,
Cleveland's going to make him. So yeah, Cleveland's
the type of guy that they normally do. And Luis Ortiz is another one of those guys that, has the tools. And if he could add like a changeup or a curveball, even if he didn't, he showed that the cutter can, be the changeup type pitch. So I see it really working out for Cleveland, and ideally in a good trade, both sides leave happy or I guess mad if you're a pessimist and be like, I can't believe we gave up that guy. But yeah, it's a lot. And like you said, Josh Naylor, Nathaniel Lowe traded for far less than what
a reliever
up to get Horwitz. Yeah.
Well, so I mean, at the end of the day, it just comes down to money and control. That's really all we're talking about here, right?
It's a selling point. It's a selling point, and it'd be a selling point for the Dodgers too.
Yeah, sure. I agree on the overpay. I mean, I was surprised Ortiz just wouldn't be enough for that. Yeah. If you're just going to do a 1-for-1, like the other two just seemed like, I don't know if someone else was, pushing the agenda a little bit and that just helped it cross the finish line for the Pirates. But it seemed like they wanted him. I mean, they got their guy.
And Horwitz is relatively like unproven. I know he had a 2-war season, but like he's a 27-year-old first-year player.
Yeah.
It's not like you're trading for a proven MLB bat.
Mm-hmm. Besides, go on, Alex.
The COVID year really did, I think, slow the development, right there. So I'm willing to kind of look past, the 27 compared to like a decade ago. If this guy was 27 years old and just now breaking up, he had like 2 years kind of robbed, of him. If he was 25, I don't think age would at all be a factor here. But there's also he's 27. Most players, peak as a player about 28, 29, 27. Is this the best he's going to be? A 2-3-war player. Now, 3-war at first base, I think the Pirates had Josh Bell in 19, and then who was the last first base?
Santana?
Nah,
Santana didn't have 3-war. We might be going back to like.
I meant like just positive war.
Just
yeah. Sorry,
the bar is much lower. Alex, come on.
The bars. G-man Choi erasure. I can't.
Yeah.
All I'm going to say is, in response to all this, I am praying to Saint Matt Haig for the rest of the offseason in order to really actualize this love for Spencer Horwitz and a lot of the bats that they've acquired that they've been familiar with over the years. Because, I mean, Horwitz was definitely, and he's had a lot of positive words about Haig, but he's going to have, if this is what they're going to go in with, which I think they are going to make another move or 2 or 3. But, they're going to have to really improve offensively to improve upon the 76 win season they just had.
Yeah. Let's get into the juicy stuff, Alex. Like the real meat of it. Alex Verdugo, right? He's the talk of Pirates Twitter, and now you got Randal Grichuk as well. What's your feeling? Let's start on Verdugo. Scott and I have made it known we're not the biggest fans. Is it really an improvement moving forward? Obviously, again, bar real low. But if we're talking about actually improving this team for the next couple of years, do you think Alex Verdugo, well, one, do they give a guy like that a multi-year deal? And two, is that someone that you would welcome to this lineup to make the team better?
If they give Alex Verdugo a multi-year deal, I don't know what's going on here anymore. No, like him and Grichuk are two guys who I would have to imagine are 1 year deal,
right?
Like type of deals. I don't see how Verdugo moves the needle though. Like
same,
he had a 650 OPS
in Yankee Stadium as a lefty.
Yes,
brutal.
I think I can learn to hit left-handed, drive one out of Yankee Stadium in BP eventually. So it's good fielder. Mm-hmm. He squares up the baseball at a high clip, which seems to be something that they have targeted. Spencer Horwitz does that. IKF does that. So I would imagine buying into that is, a good thing, but he doesn't generate a ton of bat speed. That's why he had a 647 OPS at Yankee Stadium as a left-handed hitter. I don't know how he moves the needle here. I would honestly rather just roll with Billy Cook or Jack Sawinski or Nick York in right field rather than have Alex Verdugo as the everyday guy.
Yeah.
If he's half of a platoon, I guess a Verdugo Grichuk platoon would actually be
now we're talking
pretty good. Maybe pretty good. You probably could get like 4-ish WAR out of that, but if I could only have one, I'm taking Grichuk, no questions asked.
Yeah,
right.
Same.
Yeah, I think your options are a little bit limited with the platoon if you take Verdugo as well with what you currently have on the roster. If you're talking Jack Sawinski or Joshua Palacios, so you're really talking what, Verdugo, Cook at that point.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so I agree. I also just don't think you're getting, like you said, he squares the ball up. He doesn't strike out much. He's got decent plate discipline. But when it comes to driving and runs, it's not like last year was an outlier when he only hit 13 home runs. In 23, he hit 13 as well. And in 22, he hit 11. So and the numbers have decreased every year. I like Grichuk. I think anything off of like a 1 year deal is solid. But with Grichuk, you're definitely sacrificing the defensive side of things, right?
Yeah, you definitely are. I keep bringing his name up though, but Billy Cook, if you want to make him like the 7th, 8th, 9th,
sure,
type deal, like that could work. Grichuk would probably be best utilized as a platoon, at this stage of his career. Right field at PNC Park, you don't need the most range to do it. It would probably be best for whoever the corner outfielders are to just yield to O'Neill a little bit this year, whenever it comes to outfield defense. Like it's your canvas. Just if you could possibly get it, go get it. We're going to give you a couple extra feet both way to work with. So you are going to be sacrificing the defense. The counterpoint is the outfield defense is already O'Neill Cruz, who I am bullish on, defensively, but he is unproven, and Brian Reynolds, who was in the bottom 1% of, defensive outfielders last year.
And BDLC, yes.
I'm kind of in for a penny, in for a pound. I don't want a guy with, 3 outs above average, going out in right field and thinking, okay, well, that solves the problem.
Right.
I kind of the mindset of, what, this is a pretty good defensive infield you'll have with Hayes and Triolo and Horwitz and Gonzalez. Just tell everyone strike out or ground ball. If it goes in the air, you might be in trouble.
I didn't realize how much Grichuk crushes lefties.
Oh,
like
yeah.
I was like, I understood like last year he had a great year at the plate. 319 off lefties, 23, 328 versus lefties, 22, 308 versus lefties. A majority of his home runs. Well, I don't even say like he still hit 6 home runs versus righties, which was the same amount he hit versus lefties in 24. He hit 8 off of both sides in 23, 11 and 8 in 22. So I think that's the clear option. But I think then it comes down to who are these other teams that are in, and do these guys actually want to come to Pittsburgh on a deal that's going to be juicier than possibly the Mets or someone else that could pay a little bit more than the Pirates?
One of the things that this team I feel like also has to prove with free agents is a great selling point that like the 14-15 Pirates had was we just made the playoffs. We're a good team. We've got the MVP, out in center field. Come be part of this. Right now, you could pitch like, hey, we've got one of the best young rotations in baseball. We got a young core. We're getting better, get better, but they also didn't, improve their win total from last year. They haven't proven that they can be a competitive club for 6 months yet. So I feel like that's kind of hurting them. It's a lot easier to sell a smaller contract if that player also feels like I am going to win. I'm going to play well. I am going to, for basic things that, any free agent will want. It's money, it's opportunity, it's a chance to excel, and it's, a chance to win. And if you can't offer, as much money as everyone else, well, you got to offer that opportunity, a chance to win, and a chance that you feel like, okay, I'm going to do well so I can make a bigger contract later.
Yeah. Alex, I've been saying that I don't know if the answer in outfield is in free agency. I mean, yeah, you can go get a Verdugo or a Grichuk, and I prefer Grichuk. I agree with you. I think he provides power that this lineup desperately needs. And, he had a pretty good year last year in like 250 at-bats or so. I know he's mostly probably a platoon guy at this point in his career. But I'm curious if you have any names in the trade market that you're eyeing or interested in, because I'm specifically really high on Jake McCarthy. I don't know why. I'm a big Jake McCarthy guy. He'd be cheap, years of control. He doesn't provide the power, but he provides the on base. He provides base stealing. He provides, defense. Like he kind of gives you a lot more tools than other guys do. So is there a name out there in the trade market that you think that they could go after to improve their corner outfield?
I mean, I like Lane Thomas at at the right price. Cleveland did just grab a bunch of the pitching prospects that they liked from the Pirate system. So I'm not particularly optimistic something like that will come together. But yeah, trade might be the better avenue. If you want to add an impact player, trade would be the better option.
Sure.
I feel like. But if you are in a position like the Pirates are, where like, okay, well, we got Sawinski, who I know last year was absolutely awful, but he hit 45 home runs in a year and a half, to start his career. You've got Billy Cook, who great defense. Nick York was a, high draft pick, forward top 100 guy. I don't think they really want to 100% close the door for any of those guys, to potentially take the ball and run with it, which is why I feel like it's Grichuk's and Verdugo's who are, kind of driving this conversation right now. Veterans who would be presumably one-year deals, who could still have either a platoon partner or a defensive replacement later, just some type of other opportunity for one of these other young guys that you have on the roster. Because there's not a whole lot in terms of position players coming up after Tamar Johnson until you get to like Connor Griffin.
Right.
But
impact bats at least.
Yeah, but you do have a couple guys who are kind of in that AAA Major League limbo that you got to have some sort of runway or opportunity for them.
Is this Sammy Siani erasure right here, Alex?
Oh yeah, this is definitely Sammy Siani erasure. I'm sorry, I remember the years 2019 through 2023, and not just
Oh God. I mean, is there anyone on the 40-man right now that you think they can use as a piece like they did with Ortiz that would bring back a significant return? I know like the obvious ones that cause a stir with the Keller and Jones rumors, but like outside of that, is there anyone that you think could push the needle in the right direction to bring in an impact bat that we have right now on the roster?
I'd be very surprised if it's like a Keller or a Jones. Like I think that was more. I mean, I reported that they were going to be, shopping their starting pitchers, at the winter meetings, and it would make sense that they would hear, okay, what would you give for Jared Jones? Just just for shiggles. Like what would it be? Mitch Keller, what would his value be? You kind of have to know what other teams are valuing all your pitchers at just to make a deal. It's not like they went into the winter meetings like, we are getting rid of Mitch Keller. We are done with this guy. That said, I think someone like Bailey Falter could, still be potentially dangled out there because you do have Oviedo coming back. You've got these good young arms coming up, and if you had to spring for a free agent, to be your number 5 for a little bit, while Bubba and the other guy, Braxton and Harrington, get a little time in the minors, you could potentially do that. But there's not a whole lot right now in terms of 40-man guys outside of, or major league ready prospects, outside of like the Bubba Chandlers, the Thomas Harringtons, the Braxton Ashcrafts, and they don't want to trade those guys because they have so much potential. They are at the cusp of the major league. I'm super high on Bubba. I think a rotation of him, Oviedo, Skeens, Jones, and Keller is potentially the best of baseball.
So would you move Falter to the like a long man role then?
Falter would either be the 5th guy, the 6th guy, long man, type of deal. Falter, this is going to come off very mean, so I might want to soften this. Because Bailey Falter showed last year that he is a major league starter. He put together a good year. He is the only guy that out of this rotation that I don't see a potential of him being like an all-star in 2025 or 2026, though.
Sure.
That's not mean. That's reasonable.
I mean, you got 5 guys who potentially could, and Falter's a major league starter. He's a guy.
How dare you, Alex? How dare you?
How dare I say he's only a major league starter and not a Cy Young winner or an all-star or something? So, and if this team is really built on young pitching, and that's what's going to be driving it forward, I don't know how much use I have for like a quality number 4 starter. Honestly, I'd rather have a rotation of 1 and 2s.
I guess my only hesitation to that, and we both talked about this, Adam and I, throughout the offseason, that Bailey Falter and Luis Ortiz probably were going to be shopped. Mm-hmm. But they have like 2 left-handed arms on their whole 40-man roster. Does that concern you at all? It's Joey Wentz and Bailey Falter.
It concerns me for the bullpen. I can't pretend to care about the rotation. Like,
I agree with that.
I don't care about the rotation.
The 3-game series, half the time you're not going to see that left-hander anyway. So I don't care if it's at the end of the week. It's like, okay, well, what did that really change up? So I don't.
You just need the looks out of the pen. That's the concern.
Yeah, and Wentz was fine in his very brief terms. If he is your 2nd or 3rd lefty, I take no issue with it. If he is your only lefty going into the regular season, or you move Bailey Falter into a bullpen role, that doesn't really count in my mind. That'd just be a long man at that point. Like that's not good enough. You need to find someone out there. Maybe it's bringing back Barecki on a
Don't say Jalen Bakes. I swear to God.
Oh no. Trust me, that ain't happening. So it's Barecki, I feel like, on a minor league deal or small 1-year deal would make sense. Just prove it. There've got to be other free agents. I don't have a list in front of me. There are probably 6 or 7 guys that would.
I want to run.
The bullpen.
Yeah, I want to run 2 names by you. But first, I was shocked. Actually, I'm being sarcastic. Shocked to hear that Beeks was someone that was drafted by Ben Cherington in Boston. So, someone he was familiar with. But
I didn't know that. How did I not know this?
Yeah. And Luis Peralta had a pretty good debut. Freddie Peralta's little brother, who was traded for Jalen Beeks. But two names I really like for this pen, left-handed. I would be totally open to bringing back Brookie. He had a really unique year last year. I don't know if unique's the right word, but like he was injured. He didn't like get a good runway into the season, right? I like AJ Minter is like my dream pick. I think probably going to end up back in Atlanta, but who knows? Like he's probably the best left-handed arm left. A name that really hits for me, and it feels like a Pirate, is Ryan Yarbrough. I feel like he's given a lot of innings out of the pen for the Rays. He's also been like kind of like a spot starter at times, kind of like the Josh Fleming role. Yeah. And Josh Fleming wasn't all that bad last year, to be honest with you. Like we had way worse relievers. So Ryan Yarbrough's a name. I've been telling Adam this a lot the past couple of days too. I don't know why I'm stuck on him. I'm like, Ryan Yarbrough's on my mind.
If they want to do bullpen games, buy your young starters another day of rest. I mean, Yarbrough would be a perfect opener. He's done it plenty. Yeah,
absolutely.
I feel like
I'm pretty sure he's the leader in innings for the Rays over the past 3. I heard it on a podcast recently because the Rays have had so many arm injuries. He like leads the Rays in innings pitched over the last like 5 years or something like that.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah, I feel like Tim Hill has Pirate written all over
Tim
him.
Hill too. Yeah.
You're actually gonna make me pull up a list here.
I'm on.
Tim Hill was really good last year, especially in the playoffs for the Yankees. I know he got off to a rough start. I think he started with the White Sox and was claimed off waivers. But
I mean, I don't hate bringing back Brookie on a minor league deal, signing a guy like Tim Hill or Yarbrough and going into spring training with that, because then you could find your Dennis Santanas of the world out there.
Do we know what John Graybo is up to?
Tanner Scott hasn't signed anywhere yet, right? Not that that's an option.
No, he is not.
Heard Will Smith doing anything right now?
What's that?
Will Smith doing anything?
Oh, he usually is on the World Series team, so that might be the move.
Sign him.
Yeah, bring him in. What do you have to lose at this point? Any other predictions or hunches that you have, Alex, that you could see, or like a dream move that you would love this team to make that absolutely won't happen?
I mean, prediction is they are going to sign a major league free agent at a wildly inconvenient time for me before this offseason is through. It is either going to be on Super Bowl Sunday. It is either going to be while I'm flying down to Bradenton, but I've got a couple family engagements between now and then. It's going to happen. This offseason has been – Ben must know my social schedule. They have – I think I can count on one hand how many times I've just been like chilling at home doing nothing, and they made a trade or signed someone. It's like, okay, well, I wasn't doing anything. Every single time I'm out or doing something else. And I'm not that, don't have the greatest of social lives. It feels targeted.
That could be something. We got to talk to Ben for you. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, it's like, oh, wait a minute. He's going to see Les Mis tonight. Let's sign Carlos Santana.
Hilarious. I have probably my last question, or one of my last questions, is who is a breakout guy for you this year on this team? I'm really high on Jared Triolo. I've always been way higher than the rest of the Pirates community, but is there someone out there that you expect to take a big jump in 2025?
Triolo, I think, would be that's the first guy my mind came to also. Like, I think he really grew as a hitter as the year progressed. Someone that the year departed Andy Haynes, I think, was able to teach. He was coachable. He had a good, solid 2 final months of the season last year. Like, it was a rough year, but I think he did grow, get better from it. I wouldn't be surprised if he could become, an average, slightly above average major league hitter this year or in the near future. I put this in the mailbag. I think I'm Eddie Yeenfield also. If we want a prospect who's not on the top 30, just some serious stuff. I know it hasn't come all together. He's also only 23 years old. I joke with the tools that you have on Baseball Savant now. You can look up a lot of minor league stuff. And I made a joke to be like, "Oh, I'm Eddie Yeen. Look at every piece of contact I've ever given up on a fastball." And then I looked up later. It's like, wait a minute, not a single one of those was in the upper third of the strike zone. Oh no! So he's got stuff. If he could figure it out, he would be a great guy to add to this bullpen if he clicks, at some point this year.
Are you telling me we could still win the Josh Bell trade?
Yep.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Scott.
I don't think anyone won the Josh Bell trade.
Yeah, I mean,
I lost the Josh Bell trade Christmas Eve. That's what happened.
Yeah, we got to fix that. I mean, the only thing that sticks out to me right now is I know it's not going to happen, but like I could dream on like a Jurickson Profar, but if things got like way too far into the offseason and it's just like, why isn't anyone signing this guy? But that's my only like dream guy right now that I know is not going to happen. It's going to be someone that I'm going to be extremely underwhelmed by, but that's the only name that actually sticks out to me right now where I'm like, in some alternate universe, it could make me very happy.
The guy for that for me, and this would take a whole lot of dangling. It makes no logical sense to sign him just to have to trade like a Bailey Falter. But Jose Quintana was such a perfect fit in Pittsburgh, and all the young pitchers looked up to him, and he would be a perfect guy to add.
You have the Chapman effect.
Yeah, yes. They need as good as Paul Skeens is, and how much the prospects in the system are looking up to him, and trying to work out with him and just do anything around him, touch the golden child. I get it. You also need the major league version of that also. Like as good as Paul is, what's Mitch supposed to do if he's lost right now? Is he gonna look up to a 23-year-old? Guaranteed? Not necessarily. So I think he'd be a perfect fit back in. I would go out of my way to try to make the roster work to bring back Jose Quintana.
I like that.
Also, Roansy Contreras doesn't have a job.
I am going to be 100 years old on my deathbed saying, "Where's Roansy pitching right now?" He's due for a breakdown. I forever.
Yeah, he is due. But Alex, we can't thank you enough, man. We're just at about the 45-minute mark. I think that's enough Pirates talk for one night. It's already hard enough to get through. So I appreciate you joining us, powering through this off season. And listen, something good's coming your way. Like it can't, unless someone's outside of your place watching you right now. Like we're getting that scoop. It's gonna happen.
Yeah. I'll just telegraph the next time I'm going out.
In conclusion, league sources are telling me that this episode might be over. So
absolutely.
Can't trust league sources, man. Come
on. Alex, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Blue Sky and on X at Alex J. Stumpf, and I guess also on TikTok and Instagram whenever those finally get booted up in spring training.
Awesome. Go follow Alex. And if you don't already follow us on all socials, we got a big announcement coming tonight, which I guess you'll already hear tomorrow when you're listening to this episode. Go to YouTube, subscribe, hit the like button, share it, leave a comment. If you don't like it, don't tell anybody. Just be a good person, put it away, and move on with your day. And go get some merch at buckobanter.com. Scott, you wearing any merch right now?
Hoodie, baby.
There you go. I got the new crew neck on. It's comfortable. You might have fucked up on some Christmas gifts this year or some holiday gifts. So return those and get one of these. Until next time, raise it.
Raise it.
Rockin' 101, she compliment my taste. Whiskey in my lemonade, cause I like the way it tastes. Best seats at the Pirates game, they let me run the base. Yeah, my time is like my money, cause I can't afford to waste. Wifey is a lawyer, take my date to my dates, or the steak by the plates.